Welcome back to Simrite Fashion Academy YouTube channel for another interesting tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to sew this short pencil skirt with lapel and loops, lacing, as you can see right there. So these are the lacings right here and this beautiful fitted band. Okay, so if this is what you want to learn, this class is actually very detailed. I will encourage you to stay till the end of this tutorial to learn more. Thank you. So to start off this tutorial, I'll be making use of my Ankara fabric. So this Ankara fabric, I have 6 yards here, but I'm going to cut out only 2 yards for this project. Okay, so I'm using 2 yards of my Ankara print right here. So but before we cut out on our fabric, because we have a flap at the front, I'll come in with my pattern paper, so we'll be able to draft out the flap, okay, or the lapel. So this is what I have on my paper. I'm going to place my paper on fold. So I'm placing this paper on fold depending on the circumference of my hip. So the hip circumference I'm working with, divide by 4, is 12 inches. So if I add 1 inch to it, I'll be having 13. So my paper is enough to work on it. So I'll just make a crease line at the center front. So right here is the beginning of this skirt. So I'm going to take the full length of my skirt from this edge. So the full length of my skirt, this will serve as my waistline, and I'm going to measure my hip line. So my hip line is 9 inches. I'll mark. Then I'm going to measure the length of my skirt. So the length of this skirt is actually your choice. Okay, so if you want it a little bit shorter, you can take it from 15 inches, 16, 17, depending on your choice. But for this particular tutorial, I would like to have the length of my skirt at 17 inches. So to make a straight line, I'll go ahead and measure again my hip circumference at 9 inches and my length of the skirt at 17 inches. So you can also make it longer using the same principle. So I'll just draw my line across. So having done that, I'm going to mark out the band for this particular skirt. So I place my tape back again. I'm using band of 2 inches. I'll mark it out. Then I'm going to come up by 2 inches on the hip line. That will serve as my upper hip position. So to get a straight line, I'll mark another 2 inches and another 2 inches from my actual hip line. So now I'm going to create my line, and then I'm going to create my band line as well. So the lines I have here now, I'm going to label the lines I have right now. So for what I have from here to here is my band, and what I have here is my hip. This is the full length of this particular skirt. So the full length of this skirt, because it has a flap, so I'm going to extend this flap by about, it depends on how long you want it, but let me just extend it by 6 inches. I'll extend it by 6 inches. So just go ahead and add 6 inches. So this 6 inches, I'll rule the line as well. That is the flap line. So we'll start imputing what we have on the measurement. So after marking out the vertical lines, okay, so like I said, this line is your upper hip line. This is the upper hip line, and this is the lower hip line. Okay, so I'll show you why we have to go up at 2 inches. Okay, So now I'm going to make use of here, which is the waistline. So here is my waistline, and that is where we are going to attach the band. So the band is 2 inches. I've said it before. So now I'm going to take the measurement of my waist circumference, divide by 4. My waist is 38 inches. Divide by 4 will give me 9.5 inches. I'll mark. Then I'm going to add 2 inches. 1 inch is for my dart, and the other 1 inch is for my sewing allowance. That is 2 inches. So I'll go over to the lower hip. I'm going to measure my hip circumference. My hip circumference divided by 2 is by 4 is 48. Divided by 4 is 12 inches. I'll come over to the lower hip. I'm going to mark the same hip measurement divided by 4. So the reason we have to step up by 2 inches is because this part of the hip is usually fitted without a bulge on the side like this. So if you have to draw a straight line right here, you will not have that bulge by the side of the hip. So I'll now go ahead and connect what I have from here, the upper hip. I'm going to, before I connect, we are supposed to add our seam allowance, okay? So seam allowance is 1 inch on the hip side. So before you mark that line, add your seam allowance and then place your pattern ruler this way to the hip. Can you see? So this part is supposed to be straight. So whatever you have on that lower hip line, measure it. That is 13 inches right now, okay, including the seam allowance. So this 13 inches, take away 2 inches from it. Then come over to the full length. So the full length, I'll mark 11 inches. So once I do that, I'll place my pattern ruler this way and connect to the hip position. Can you see that? So now this is what we have for this particular skirt. So because we have a flap which we extended by 6 inches from the full length of the skirt, I'll just go ahead and do this. Can you see what I did? I'll just go ahead and connect it from here to this. I had to cut out the side of the skirt, which I marked and added my seam allowances. So I cut out the band right now, okay? So this is my band. I went ahead and separated the band from the main skirt. So now I'm going to cut out the front skirt with this pattern. Then we'll also cut out the back skirt as well. So now I want to cut out my pattern. So I'm placing it right on my fabric, as you can see. So I'm folding in the other lapel 6 inches allowance, okay? Then add half an inch all around and 1 inch on the hem. So I'm reducing my lining. So to cut out the back pattern, this is what I have. I have my fabric on fold. And then I'm going to rule my zipper line, okay? So because we are going to have a zipper at the back. So this zipper line I've ruled right now. I'll come in with my pattern. I'll place it directly on the zipper line. So the zipper line is 1.5 inch, okay? So the reason for 1.5 inch is because we are going to have the zipper allowance with joining, okay? So joining allowance is half, zipper allowance is 1 inch. So you give 1.5 inch. So this 1.5 inch, I'm trying to arrange my center front on the center back line appropriately before I cut. So I just place it on that line before I cut. So I'll go ahead and cut exactly the same thing I have for the fabric. Then I'll go over to the waistline and I'm going to cut out exactly. So now you can see the 1.5 inch. So on top of the waistline, this is my waistline. I'm going to come in by 0.75. Okay, so I just mark out 3/4 here, and that 3/4 I'm going to blend it up to the hip line. That is to avoid a bulge, or to make it lap on the butt. So just go ahead and do what I'm doing right here. So here I'll open up the center back. Once I get to that point, I'm going to contour this to the 0.5 inch. Okay, so now I'll also come over here by 1/2 inch on the hem. So just come in by 1/2 inch. So once you have done that, place your ruler also this way to that point and contour so that it will be tapered on the back. Okay, so it contours and fits the boots very appropriately. So now I will use what I have on this back pattern to cut out my lining and reduce it by 1 inch as well. So don't forget to make your notches on the center front. So I've made my notches on the center front. Let me cut the lining. For the lining, I'm using my Doffé satin fabric, and I'm cutting exactly the same thing as you can see, reducing my lining by 1/2 inch and marking out my dart allowance. I want to start off the construction of the lapel using this pattern. So I'll just go ahead and open up the pattern. I'm going to open it up completely. So when I open it up, I'll go ahead and identify the part that is the center front. So this is the center front right now. So this center front line, you have to indicate it. Okay, so on the picture we are seeing on the thumbnail, this is the right side of the skirt and this is the left side of the skirt. So from this left side of the skirt, I'm going to go in by 2.5 inches. So I'll go in by 2.5 inches, and on my hip I'll come down by 1 inch on my hip. Okay, so I'll come in by 1 inch on my hip and go my below my hip and come in again by 2.5 inches. So these 2.5 inches, I'll just go ahead and connect a straight line to it like this. Can you see? So once that is done, I'll go ahead and come in by 1 inch from the center front towards the right line, or let me say 1.5 inches. Okay, so I'll just connect from here to here. So you can also decide to connect from here to here the way it is exactly on the thumbnail. You can decide to run it all the way from here to here. Okay, so it's all by your choice, but for this tutorial I'll just go ahead and create this design. So after that, we are going to create the flap for this other side. So for this other side, I'll come in by another 2.5 inch. Okay, so for this 2.5 inch, I'll rule my line straight down to here. So that means you also take 2.5 inch, so you have a straight line. This is where we are going to have our eyelet, or we are going to have our loop, as you see right there on the picture. So now I'm going to connect what I have here to 1.5 inch above, or 2.5 inch again above the actual knee line. So what I'll just do now, from here, this point, I'll just blend it into that part. So we are going to have our loops or our lacings, depending on what you want to use, eyelet or lacing, so whichever way you are good to go. But the most important thing is what we have right here, which is the lapel. So I'm going to cut out the lapel, and what we have here, we'll be using it for the construction of this the lapel. So make sure this line is extended to the right side, and then you connect it this way. Can you see how I connected it? So that is how we are going to have this lapel. So you can actually create different designs for this, but for what we have on the thumbnail, this is it. So I'll go ahead and cut out this and cut out this. So this is the first one. So once I come here, I'll go this way and cut out. Then for this, I'll just go ahead and cut it out from here. So I just blended it up right here. All right, so these are the patterns that we have that we are going to sew right here. So I'm going to cut out my fabric together with the lining for both of them now. Then I'll show you where necessary to make your notches. So now you can see I've cut out the lapel, and I added 0.5 inch all around. After cutting it, please ensure this is our hip line. Okay, make sure you make a notch on the lower hip line. So that notch is very important. So I'm going to place my lining on fold again to cut number 2. So here I have 2 pieces of it, and I'm going to indicate the part that is right and the part that is left, because when sewing it, I'm going to flip it together right now and stitch the back all the way. I'm done cutting out, and I added 0.5 inch seam allowance. So please make your notch towards the eyelet or loop part on the hip line. Can you see? So that will help us when we are sewing the loop, or we'll use this notch to guide the loops. So we are done right now, so we'll go over to the sewing. We want to start up sewing, so we are going to sew first on the with the front piece. So this is the whole front piece. Like I said, I reduced the lining by 1 inch. So I'll now push down the lining. I'm going to sew with my joining allowance right now. I'm going to sew 0. So after joining the lining and the fabric under, I'm going to push it. This is where I have my notch. I'll just push it to match up with what I have on my waistline. So just align it on your waistline. So when you align it on your waistline, you notice that this part will go up. Okay, so I'll secure it with my pin right now. I'll go ahead and sew. As I align it to the waistline, I'm going to sew 0.5 inch. But once I get here, I'll open up my seams, okay, and finish it up. I'll repeat the same thing over here. Now I'm done turning it around, and I've given it a good press. I also use the same method for my back. So now I want to sew the darts. Sewing my dart exactly where I notched at 6 inches for the front. This is the center back. I'm placing them together to sew the center dart, the zipper part, and just a little slit. After ironing it, this is what I have. Can you see? So this is the slit, and this is the zipper point. Time for us to sew the lapel, and I'm using my bias strip to sew the loops. So I just got myself bias strip, and I came down by 1 inch, and I'm marking at 1.5 inch at intervals. Okay, so these are my loops. I've cut them at 2 inches. Okay, please cut at 2 inches. So I'll just pick them one after the other. I'm picking them one after the other. So like I demonstrated, I'll fold in the bias. If you are using bias, just do what I did right now. Can you see? So I'll do this. I'll form the loop with it. So I'm going to place it inwards. Can you see? On the after 1 inch I step down, I'll place it just directly on it this way. Can you see that? So if this is going to be difficult for you, you can just get an already made loop, so it will be easy for you. So I'm just going to sew and back stitch at 0.5. I'll pick up another like that. So I'll just take my time to form this loop. So face it this way. If you face it this way, you'll not be able to have it anymore. So you can see, so I'm sewing at 0.5. Once I get to the loop, I'll back stitch. Still sewing the loops at 1.5 interval. This is what I have for my loops. Can you see that? I use my bias to form it and it's still nice and clean. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and pick them one after the other, place them on top this way. So you are going to place it right side to right side. That is why I asked you to face the loop this way, so you'll be able to see it. So I'll secure it with my pin. I'll go over to my machine. I'll sew at 0.5. I turned it this way because I'm going to stitch right on top of the stitches I made for the loop. I'm going to close it up till I get, so I'll turn it from the waistline as usual. So I'll do the same for this. I'll go over to my machine too. I'll lay this on top like this, and then I'll follow the stitches and leave this part open. Give it a good press. I have my loops. I've finished it up. You can see what I have. So I'll come in with my front skirt. So this is the front skirt. I stitched the dart at 5 inches for the front. The length of the dart is 5 inches for the front. Can you see that? So now I'm going to place the right side of this, and I'm going to start placing the lapel the way it is right there on the video. So here I'm going to place this to match up with what I have right here. So make sure you place it appropriately, because I'm going to hold it down now. I'm going to hold it down with my pin. So I'll secure it with my pin. You can see I've placed it matching on the waistline and matching on the hip line. I also did the same for this, matching on the hip line and matching on the waistline. So I'll just go ahead and secure it with my pin. Okay, so I'm going to pin it down, then we'll place the back on top of it. You can see I've pinned it to the edges, and I made sure it aligns at the upper piece as well. So this is what the lapel looks like right there. So I'll make sure everything matches up. So after that, I'm going to lay the back of the lining on top of it like this. I'll also align it this way. So I'll be using the measurements I have on the back. So the measurement I have on the back, that is what I'm going to use to shaping this skirt. So the waist measurement I was working with, from this point, I'll just open up this point and mark out my 1 inch zip allowance. Then I'm going to measure my waist circumference, divide by 4, which I got at 9.5. I'll mark. Then I'll start from here to the hip. I'll measure my hip circumference, divide by 4, which I got at 12 inches. Okay, so I'm going to mark it. So I started from the point I stitched for my zipper, as you can see, because I've already taken off the 1 inch on top. So from here I'll just mark 12 inches, and from here I'll just go ahead and mark minus 1 inch zipper allowance. So I'm going to mark 10 inches. Okay, I'm going to mark 10 inches because what we have here will take away 2 inches from it. So I'll go ahead and mark. I'm going to place my ruler this way and that way. So I'll repeat the same process on the other side. So I'll go ahead and stitch it right away. Then we'll move over to the band. Before we move over to the band, I'm going to sew my lacing now. So for the lacing, the width of my lacing is 1.5 inches, and the length of my lacing can be as long as I want it to be. So I'll go back to the machine, fold in 0.5, fold in 0.5, and then I'm going to stitch up. Sewing the skirts. This is what we have. Can you see that? So that is what we are going to have. This is my band. So the length of my band is my waist circumference plus 2 inches of zipper and 1 inch for sewing this side, because I have to fold in this side at 0.5. On both sides is 1 inch. So the width, if I open it, is 5 inches. Okay, everything is 5 inches because I'm working with band of 4 inches. So I'll now fold in on my ironing table, half an inch. I'm now left with 4 inches. So these 4 inches I'm left with, when I fold it again, it's going to form our band. So I'll fold in again and give it a good press. You can see I gave it a good press. So I'll come in with my skirt right now. So this is the zipper at 1 inch. So I'll start sewing from the inside. So I'll pick up my band. I'll place my band. This is what I'm going to do on my machine. The lining part, I'll open this part first, fold in this first, place it and sew at 0.5 all around. So when I'm done, at the end of the day, I'll have it this way. Then I'll also fold it in the other 0.5 and top stitch on top. I'm done with the band. You can see the band is laying nice and flat right here. So I'll turn to the back and sew my zipper. So I have to stitch the band to the zipper point, as you can see. So I stitched it to the zipper point. So before I sew my zip, I'll just go ahead and top stitch a little because I folded 0.5 inch. I'll just top stitch on top of it. So I'm going to sew my zip right now with my zipper foot. So finally I've sewn my zip. Can you see that? So, and we still have a little slit at the back. Then we have the front, which is the main purpose of this tutorial. So I'll just go ahead and lace it the way I want to lace it. Okay, so I'll just push it into the lacings this way. So this is how we'll come to the end of this tutorial, and I believe this class was helpful to you. So if you are new to this channel, please kindly subscribe, turn on your notification bell to receive videos like this every day. Like this video, share to family and friends, drop your comment on the comment section and your suggestions as well. Thank you once again. See you in the next class. Bye.